The India-Pakistan rivalry, a decades-old conflict, flared up once again in early May 2025. India launched airstrikes within Pakistani territory. These strikes were a response to a deadly attack on Indian tourists. Pakistan denied any involvement in the tourist attack. Nevertheless, tensions escalated rapidly. Pakistan retaliated with airstrikes of its own. Both sides engaged in dangerous military maneuvers. The situation was especially perilous given the nuclear capabilities of both countries. The specter of nuclear war loomed large. Pakistan responded to the Indian airstrikes with a calculated show of force. It convened a meeting of its National Command Authority, or NCA. The NCA oversees Pakistan's nuclear arsenal. This sent a clear message to India and the world. Pakistan was prepared to use all means necessary to defend itself. This strategy, known as dual signaling, was a dangerous gamble. On the one hand, it was a deterrent. Pakistan aimed to prevent further Indian aggression. The implicit threat was clear: escalate the conflict further, and face the possibility of a nuclear response. This brinkmanship was a risky strategy. It relied on the assumption that India would back down in the face of nuclear threats. However, there was no guarantee that this would be the case. On the other hand, the dual signaling strategy also carried significant risks. By raising the specter of nuclear war, Pakistan risked provoking the very response it sought to avoid. India too possesses nuclear weapons. It was unlikely to be intimidated by Pakistani threats. In fact, it could easily interpret them as an act of aggression, potentially leading to a dangerous cycle of escalation. Moreover, Pakistan's nuclear signaling had wider implications for regional stability. It risked triggering a nuclear arms race in South Asia. Other countries in the region might feel compelled to develop their own nuclear deterrents. This would make the region far more dangerous and unstable. The international community condemned Pakistan's nuclear rhetoric. It called for restraint and a de-escalation of tensions. The United States, wary of being drawn into another international conflict, found itself in the familiar role of mediator. The Trump administration, despite its often unpredictable foreign policy, recognized the gravity of the situation. The risk of a nuclear exchange between India and Pakistan was simply too great to ignore. The US, with its long-standing relationships with both countries, was perhaps the only power capable of mediating a peaceful resolution. US diplomatic efforts focused on two key objectives. The first was to secure an immediate ceasefire. This involved intense back-channel negotiations with both Indian and Pakistani officials. The US leveraged its influence to persuade both sides to step back from the brink. The second objective was to facilitate a more lasting solution to the underlying issues that sparked the conflict. This was a far more complex and challenging task. The US faced criticism for its handling of the crisis. Some accused the Trump administration of being too eager to claim credit for the ceasefire. Others argued that the US had not done enough to address the root causes of the conflict. Despite these criticisms, there was little doubt that US intervention had played a crucial role in preventing a catastrophic escalation. The US found itself walking a tightrope. It had to balance its strategic interests in the region with the need to avoid being seen as taking sides. The US had to work within the constraints of its relationships with both India and Pakistan. It was a delicate balancing act that required careful diplomacy and a nuanced understanding of the complex dynamics at play. The 2025 India-Pakistan crisis, while alarming, was not an isolated incident. It was merely the latest chapter in a long and bloody history of conflict between the two nations. The rivalry dates back to 1947. The Indian subcontinent was partitioned into India and Pakistan. The partition was a bloody affair. It led to widespread violence and displacement. The two countries have fought several wars since then. The most intractable issue remains the disputed territory of Kashmir. Both India and Pakistan claim Kashmir in its entirety. The dispute has poisoned relations between the two countries for decades. It has also led to numerous military confrontations. The 2025 crisis underscored the fragility of peace in South Asia. It also highlighted the urgent need for a lasting solution to the Kashmir dispute. However, finding such a solution remains elusive. Both India and Pakistan are entrenched in their positions. Neither side seems willing to compromise. The international community must remain engaged in efforts to promote dialogue and reconciliation between India and Pakistan. The alternative, a full-scale war between two nuclear-armed states, is simply unthinkable. The stakes are too high to allow historical grievances and mistrust to dictate the future of South Asia.